Hello and thanks for staying on LN 24/7. This is Politics Now. My name is Mono Balat-Bobo. Tonight we'll be talking about the Rivers political crisis, and here is a rundown of our talking points. We'll look at the breach of peace accord. Fubara declares factional assembly non-existent. APC's demand for Governor Fubara'S removal, and finally we'll look at the impact of the crisis on governance in the state. Joining us are two political analysts live from Rivers State. Tonye Inyoribo Bakanista is joining us tonight. He is a member of the People's Democratic Party in Rivers State. And secondly, Samson Dumizo, political analyst. He is a writer and also a policy analyst. Stay with us. We'll be back. So let's give you the updates immediately. Now, recall that the Rivers State Governor, Siminalayi Fubara, declared the Martin Amewule-led House of Assembly as floating and non-existent, and as such has no valid potency to take binding legislative decisions on the state following their defection. The governor disclosed this while addressing the delegation of traditional rulers and opinion leaders from Bayelsa State that was led by the former governor of the state, Dixon, who paid him a courtesy visit at the government house in Port Harcourt on Monday. His Excellency pointed out that he accepted the presidential peace accord to keep them floating, as the agreement has no constitutional basis but a political solution to a problem. Now, in his defense, Fubara said he made more sacrifices in the course of the crisis to ensure peace, adding that even with the peace deal, his supporters are being harassed and intimidated with arrest. But he has continued to show restraint as a mature leader, realizing that there can be no meaningful development in an atmosphere of rancor. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about his opponents.
Each time we come out from one meeting, we are faced with one thunder or lightning. Let me say it here. The young people, those group of men who claim that are assembly members, are not assembly members. They are not existing. I want it to be on record. I accepted that peace accord. I accepted that peace accord to give them a floating. That's the truth. There was nothing in that peace accord that is a constitutional issue. It's a political solution to a problem. And I accepted it because these were people that were eating in my house. These were people that have helped pay their children's school fees when I wasn't even a governor. So what is the thing there? Yeah, we might have a division, but I believe that one day we could also come together. And that was the reason I did it. But I think it's gotten to a time when I need to make a statement on this thing so that they understand that they're not existing. Their existence is me allowing them to exist. If I de-recognize them, they are nowhere. That's the truth. So,
now, this is some tough words from Governor Fubara. Now, do recall that the crisis between Fubara and his godfather, Wike, started last year when the assembly, dominated by Wike's loyalists, attempted to impeach the governor. The two camps later signed a peace pact following the intervention of President Bola Tinubu, but they had since resumed hostilities as they disagreed on the peace pact. Now, Wike's camp has replied this particular video that you just watched, saying that he is a dictator and that he should prepare for an impeachment notice. Let's listen to what they said.
The governor has built a reputation for himself of disregarding other arms of government and their pronouncement once it does not favor him. It is on this premise that we inform the general public that the governor is a dictator and has no right to declare the House of Assembly non-existent. We want the governor to know that no assembly, be it state, national, or even local government assembly, exists by the whips and caprices of the executive. We therefore call on the State House of Assembly to be steadfast and use legal means to protect the state and commence the process of impeachment of the governor, who is now operating like a dictator. Finally, we thank the President, His Excellency, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for his love and intervention in the River State crisis. We apologize to him for the consistent verification of his personal office by the governor, thereby reducing his highly revered presidential intervention to a mere unconstitutional political solution that holds no water.
Meanwhile, the state chapter of the All Progressive Congress, APC, has issued a standing order to the 27 APC members in the House of Assembly to immediately commence an impeachment process on Governor Siminalayi Fubara. APC said the impeachment process was necessary given the governor's blatant refusal to honor the peace agreement initiated by President Bola Tinubu between Fubara and the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, some weekend and some months ago, and this recent declaration of the lawmakers sits vacant. This is their bane, and this is why they are not happy. Let's take a listen to what Tony Okocha, APC chairman in Rivers State, said.
The president cannot be derided by the governor. The president is a member, in fact, he is the leader of our own political party. And it would be foolhardy, to be stupidity on our part to sit down to see somebody way less than Mr. President insult Mr. President under our very nose. It is also an absurd to see the governor begin to espouse impunity, intimidation on the people who are members of our political party, and we stand akimbo, doing nothing. As chairman of APC Rivers State, as representative of Mr. President, that we won't sit down here to see the governor insult president. We won't sit here to see the governor declare on his own as if it's a court. He has become Daniel that is sitting in judgment to declare assembly member seats vacant to that extent.
Now, in swift response, the state government has lambasted the APC over its call on the State House of Assembly to immediately commence an impeachment process against the state governor. The state's Commissioner for Information and Communications, Mr. Joseph Johnson, who replied after the threat of APC in the state, said, and I'll just read a summary of what he said. He said, they are not fighting with legitimacy. They are only fighting for their own survival. On what plank will you put that? The law says you can't put legality on illegality. Now, in show of concern, former Federal Commissioner for Information and South-South leader Chief Edwin Clark has written to the Inspector General of Police, IGP Kayode Egbetokun, to, as a matter of urgency, intervene in the crisis rocking Rivers State to avoid anarchy and imminent danger. According to Clark, the crisis in Rivers State stemmed from the impeachment threat on Governor Siminalayi Fubara by the Speaker Martin Semewule-led Assembly that said to be loyal to the Minister of Federal Capital Territory. He is some weekend. The elder statesman who raised the alarm over the escalating political crisis in Rivers State stressed that the urgent appeal to the IGP highlights the need for swift action to prevent the crisis from spiraling out of control and potentially destabilizing the entire country. Now, our first guest joins us now to make sense of all that's going on in Rivers State, and of course not just to talk about the crisis but to proffer solutions. What's the way out? President Bola Tinubu has, intervened, but despite all of the agreement and the pact, we're still seeing all of these new developments. Toye Nyorubi, Bakinista, political analyst, joins us via audio call right now. Thank you so much for joining us on Politics Now.
It's a pleasure, actually.
Pleasure to have you with us. Now, what's your reaction to the statement made by Governor Fubara? Let's start from there, because that is the genesis of the crisis that we are beginning to see.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I will say that I am in full agreement with the position of the governor that members of Rivers State House of Assembly, led by Martin Samewule, they cease to be members of the party, of the legislative house, from the day they vacated their membership of PDP to the APC. Now, I will say this again. The former speaker, Right Honorable Martins, Right Honorable Edison Eye, in his legal capacity as speaker, proclaimed the seats of these 27 lawmakers vacant, while the elsewhere speaker. Now, his proclamation is in line with Section 109 of the Constitution of Nigeria. The only way out is for the Martins and his 26 colleagues to go to court to invalidate that order if they feel that it is not in line with the Constitution or the legality is being questioned. However, they all resorted to a political solution.
Now, I do recall that both parties agreed to the political solution. So why going back on the solution that's clearly bring peace back to the people of Rivers State? Because we can keep going back and forth and then the state is thrown into chaos. But that is the reason why I thought he agreed in the first place. So why go back on his word?
Well, Nigeria operates a constitutional democracy. We don't operate a democracy hinged at agreement of a couple of persons. So now, every agreement or every solution that is in conflict with the provisions of the relevant sections of the Constitution is null and void. It's invalid. It cannot be implemented. So I've held this view from the day they entered that accord, that the 8-point directive, which for me is not a peace agreement, it's a directive that was signed by the governor and the other disputing parties, that it is not implementable, it cannot work, because the provisions breach constitutional requirements. Now, let me explain. And I've said it several times, and I keep insisting on it. I disagree when the governor said, look, in the interest of peace, I will implement it. I disagree with him. I disagree with the governor. Why? Because if they had watched the solution, perhaps by now we would have gotten a headway.
Oh, really? So you are saying that the governor should not have signed that pact and agreed to that pact. But where is this new boldness coming from, given the fact that he said he was going to put Rivers State first, and that Rivers State is bigger than his political ambition? From the choice of words that you just listened to, from what he said, referring to some of the people who are on the other camp with former Governor Wike saying, I paid your school fees and you are existing because I am the one that gives you the opportunity to exist. I'm not really quoting his words per se, but I mean, you heard the words. Where is this boldness coming from? I'm curious.
There is one thing in politics, my brother, and I always tell people that in politics, alliances is based on trust. Now, once that trust is broken, trust me, there's no reconciliation. You can only delay the evil day. Now, the governor is a civil servant. He is from the civil service. So to him, he felt that the political solution will restore peace. But it never restored peace. For instance, the assembly members that the commissioners that resigned and was reabsorbed, what happened? even before they be officially inaugurated as inaugurated as commissioners, they were still casting aspersion on him. Even when he sent their names for reconfirmation to the House of Assembly, they still held the rally to cast aspersion on him. Even when he swore them in, they still casted aspersion on him. So now, he has not seen the reality of politics, that once the trust is broken, it can never be amended.
Okay. Now, what is going on right now in Rivers State, talking about the atmosphere? Because when you look at the letter that was written by Pa Edwin Clark, which is an open letter to the IGP of police, he's foreseeing the crisis getting out of hand. Is there any need for all of that panicking? What do you think is going on? And you can tell us firsthand what the atmosphere like politically in Rivers at the moment.
Okay, well, as for the atmosphere of Rivers, among Rivers people, a lot of people are calm and observing proceedings. Again, but I will say this, Chief Edwin Clark writing letter to the IGP is not out of place, because the police is there to protect lives and properties and ensure law and order. Now, politicians will only play their politics, understand? But they have to play their politics within the ambit of the law. So again, for Edwin Clark to write the IGP is very okay. But what I'm most disappointed in is the so-called Rivers elders. And I believe that as a country, we are at the point whereby the elders should start speaking up. Unfortunately, just like the governor remarks, most of the elders, they've sold out, they collect money, contract and everything. So they've lost their voices. Because at this is the point where elders in the states should have stepped in and talked to both parties and resolve the crisis. Not really for them to work together as friends. But now look, okay, you don't have to like the governor, or you don't have to like the minister. But instead of eating the politics, lie low. Prepare your political ground, so that the next election is another opportunity for everyone to test their might. So again, this is the way I feel that they should have done. I don't believe in taking side in terms of disputes. Neither do I believe in putting petrol to already burning fire.
What is going to be the final nail in the coffin to this political? Are we going to see the last? Because even for us journalists, it's getting boring talking about what's going on in Rivers State. I mean, can't just two work together? Is it that difficult?
Well, truly, there's no crisis in Rivers State, but you can see there's political crisis among the political elites or the political players. Because Rivers people are peaceful. Again, everybody we're all going about normal duties. But for the politicians, politics is about the disputes, it's about the resolution of disputes. It's about the agreement, about the full disagreement, prayer, and all of it. These are normal things in politics. Now, the end in sight is the 2027 general election.
2027. That seems to be a long time from now. But quickly, before I let you go, because we have another analyst to help us weigh into what's going on in the state, what's your reaction to the fuss about APC's move to impeach Fubara? This was something that would have gone on before now, but due to the intervention of President Tinubu's pact, that was stalled. So how do you see this playing out?
The APC caretaker chairman, Tony Okocha, is just grandstanding, because first and foremost, they are talking about the legitimacy of the House of Assembly, and there are cases in court to that effect by some stakeholders in Rivers State. So they at least, even if they want to commence any impeachment procedure, they will have to wait until the outcome of the suit. Secondly, if you want to impeach a governor for saying that the House of Assembly members exist because of him, because they allowed them to, I don't think that is an impeachable offense in our constitution. I don't think so. So again, they have to actually convince us why the government should impeach, for what reason. So again, the APC, they are simply grandstanding. They just want to be new. They just want to shake the governor, but the governor knows all these tricks. he knows that it's just pure theatrics, just to hit the polity and manipulate him to submission.
All right, Tonye Bakanista, thank you for being with us on Politics Now.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll take a quick breather. When we come back, of course, our next guest will be joining us to make sense of what's going on in Rivers State. Stay with us. All right, glad to know you're still watching Politics Now on LN 24/7. Well, joining us to continue our conversation what's going on in Rivers State, he's an analyst. He's neutral, not on the camp, of either Wike or Fubara. He is Samson Dumizo, political analyst and writer. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
It's my pleasure and privilege, sir.
Okay, so let's get to it. We thought the crisis was over, but that does not seem to be the case. I don't want to go round again to repeat all of the details that you are familiar with. What is your first reaction to what is playing out with the APC now moving to impeach Fubara for the comments he made recently?
Thank you very much. First, I want to begin by saying that I feel a bit disappointed that Rivers State has been in the news for some kind of bad reasons since this current administration came on board just about a year ago. That's May 29th, 2023. It's unfortunate that every other state is moving ahead, advertising their developmental fulfillments and achievements. And Rivers State is still at this spot where we're still carrying on as though we are still within the electioneering season where there's a political contest. Having said that, I am very much abreast with the resolution which was signed by the Rivers State governor. That resolution, I accept, was a political solution to the problems that were in Rivers State. And I believe that Mr. President saw the need to intervene at the time because the state was moving in a direction where it seemed as though there was going to be an implosion owing to the different disagreements between, first of all, the former governor and his political son, who is now the governor of Rivers State, talking about Fubara. Secondly, between the assembly and the executive in the state. Now, before Mr. President intervened, you would recall that several parties to this issue had gone to court, and it was seeming as though issues arising daily would lead to some kind of violence that would go beyond our control as a people. And so Mr. President, being a father to all, yielding to the call of statesmen in Rivers State, yielding to call from individuals, yielding to call from different groups, interest groups in the state, decided to call the parties involved to broker a solution to this. Some of these issues were already in court, and there was no other solution to it other than Mr. President providing a political solution. And the political solution provided by Mr. President was to the benefit of both members of the State House of Assembly and the executive led by the government, by the governor rather, of Rivers State. In that resolution, it was agreed that the Rivers State House of Assembly would not continue its impeachment procedure against the governor, and that the governor would remain. And in turn, the governor would recognize the State House of Assembly and ensure that whatever is due them is given to them. And those who had become victims of the crisis, who were commissioners in that administration, would be recalled back by the executive governor of the state. That agreement, howbeit it unconstitutional, was appended to by the governor of Rivers State. He signed with the signature, meaning that regardless of this being unconstitutional, he understands that this is a political solution And I want to say this, that peace is not an event that happens in a day. Peace is a process. And if the governor has signed it, listening to his statement, he says that, look, I did what I did, despite it not being constitutional, because I feel it was going to return peace to the state. And I want to say, your administration is for 4 years, and it's about 1 year gone. What are the issues? If you say there is no peace, what are the issues? What is contained in the document is that you will not be impeached as the governor. Is the governor impeached? Is the State Assembly still proceeding with impeachment processes? No. The State Assembly had halted the impeachment procedure. The governor, in turn, had also recognized the State Assembly and also the commissioners who willingly resigned were recalled. These were the terms in the agreement. And we must understand that this agreement was between the executive.
Okay, now we have been monitoring the situation in Rivers State. We've never seen Fubara, so bold. And critics will say at the initial stage of this crisis that he was too soft and all of that. So why the sudden changes? Fubara trading political relevance for peace in the state. Where is all this coming from? Because my last guest seems to differ, saying the governor should have not even signed the pact in the first place.
If Mr. President had not intervened, I don't know if Rivers State will still be existing up till now. Because people have gone to the extent of burning down an institution, the Rivers State House of Assembly complex. People have gone to the point of attacking one another. But all of those had ended immediately Mr. President intervened. And let me say this, that the agreement was not between Mr. President and the governor of Rivers State. Mr. President was just the one who brokered the solution, who called for peace. The agreement was between the executive and the legislature, of which the governor is leading the executive. Now, if he has decided to go against that agreement, owing to the fact that the assembly is doing their job by making certain laws, which he feels is not comfortable with. I mean, there are procedures in enacting a law in this country. The State House of Assembly have a responsibility to make laws. The governor, as the chief executive, has a responsibility to sign those into law, and where he differs, the assembly can override him, considering the broad majority in the House. And if that becomes an issue of contention, it can be taken to the courts to determine who is right and who is wrong. Like I said, peace is a process. It's not an event that happens in a day. And if at this point, the assembly has desisted the impeachment procedure and the governor has recognized the assembly, then everyone has a responsibility to manage their relationship in such a way that it does not bring back the state to that point where we were trying to avoid or avert. I also recognize, in answering your question, that when there are political crises, you're going to see persons in our political and our local parlance we call political jobbers who would want to take advantage of the situation to make money, to be relevant, to reassert themselves politically, those who have lost political relevance. And like we say in the politics of Nigeria, that the enemy to your friend is your friend. All right? So people are now beginning to, for certain reasons, those who feel the enmity with certain persons, the minister of FCT and those, are now cheering up the governor, for their personal interest, to be friends with the governor, to sustain their relevance. Some other persons have driven the politics to an ethnic dichotomy, where it is now being said this is the riverine thing and the fight is coming from upland and all of those. And these are persons with interests. And what they simply want to do is to be relevant at this time, where there seems to be crisis between the minister and his political godson, who is the governor of Rivers State. But that's not my interest at this point. What I'm interested in is that, look, Rivers State was going to go into an implosion in a dimension that nobody can ever foretell. And Mr. President, in his wisdom, decided to provide a political solution. And one of the terms in those agreements were that, look, everybody would withdraw their cases in court, including the cases in court sponsored by the Rivers State government. Now, when all cases are out of court, it means that every other thing going further will have to be subject to one-on-one conversation. And where there's a disagreement, every party is responsible to refer back to Mr. President, who had called for this peace between them. And I feel that that was the best thing to do. Because if you look at it at this point, there are still some cases in which have not been dispensed. And part of the cases in court is to determine whether those persons in the assembly who are defected from the PDP to the All Progressives Congress.
Sorry to cut you short, but why has the court judgment in the issue of the defected lawmakers lasted this long? Because some in the cabinet have resigned, sabotaging governance in the state. And some will argue that, running a state with this kind of, people or opposition rather, it makes it difficult for anything tangible to be done in the state. Hence, the reason why Governor Fubara is acting the way that he is acting.
Well, I try to understand this position of the governor, but the governor is not a baby. He's the governor of Rivers State, and he should take responsibility for his actions. The decision for peace, which he agreed to, was not superimposed on him. The governor had the chances to say, look, Mr. President, I am the governor of Rivers State. I have people that I'm leading. I'll need to consult with the elders of Rivers State and my supporters to be able to go into this event. He had that option. But the governor, in his wisdom, felt that was the best thing to do because he didn't want to be impeached and he didn't want the trouble to continue. And he appended to that agreement. Now, if you have agreed to the agreement, patience is required. Endurance is required in the process. That look, if there are things that this assembly is doing to your disadvantage, you have to refer back to Mr. President, who had called for the peace. To say, Mr. President, I have agreed to this. I have recalled these people. Do you know? But these assembly members keep antagonizing me with so laws and so this and so that. That is what a mature mind should do. That is what I expected the governor of Rivers State to do. Not to renege on the agreement that you have willingly entered into in front of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If he didn't feel comfortable with the terms, he would have said an outright no to it. But agreeing to it and signing to it means that he understands the consequences and the advantages of that agreement. And he's willing all the way to walk through whatever it is to ensure there is peace. And can I also say this, that the governor of Rivers State, after signing that agreement, came back to Rivers State to tell his supporters who were angry with him that that agreement is not a death sentence. These were the words of the governor. He said it was not a death sentence, meaning that the governor understands what it was to go into this agreement. And he understands that in the worst case scenario, everything can be okay, knowing that Mr. President is involved because he was given assurances by Mr. President. And can I say this? What are the issues? Nobody is trying to impeach the governor. If you feel that these laws are not in favor of your government, you can go back to Mr. President. Has the governor told us that he attempted to reach back to Mr. President and he was rebuffed? No, those are not in the public space. So I think that clearly what the issues are here is that some persons are trying to take advantage of the field and the crisis in Rivers State to reassert themselves into relevance. And I think that is not to the advantage of Rivers people. Peace, they say, is priceless. And I think that the governor who have gone into this agreement willingly should continue by so doing. And you have to endure the process to the end. So, coming to now say, look, that agreement was not constitutional, it was political, but you agreed to it.
Now, I just have to stop you there because you've said a lot of things, but I want us to really be realistic. I know that the House of Assembly in Rivers State put out, some reasons why they wanted to impeach him in the first place, which started immediately after Fubara and Wike, their relationship became strained. Now, the question I want to ask is, why should the House of Assembly impeach based on political reasons, even though they earlier gave some of the reasons, misappropriation of funds and signing of budgets without having the full House members in together. Now, given the fact that some appointees also willingly resigned, so you can see that there is a kind of a play of loyalty, who you are loyal to. You're either loyal to Fubara or you're loyal to Governor Wike. So when you put the governor in this kind of situation, it seems to be very very difficult, to be able to manage, some will say. But what is your reaction to the justification on why they want to impeach the governor at this particular time?
We should be clear here to understand the distinctive difference between the actions of the Rivers State House of Assembly and those commissioners who were in Fubara'S government. The commissioners, most of them resigned, and they gave their reason for political reasons. That's not the issue here. The issue is between the Rivers State House of Assembly and the governor of Rivers State. And I have said that the threat to the governor was an impeachment, which the Assembly is not proceeding with. The Assembly had accused the governor of misappropriation. The Assembly had accused the governor of signing into law a budget that was not passed by a broad majority of the Assembly members. These were the issues that formed the basis for an impeachment attempt on the governor. Howbeit, the intervention of Mr. President now negates all of those, binding the Assembly members to the agreement that they will not proceed with the impeachment of the governor, and that the governor in turn will recognize the Assembly and recall the former commissioners who were in his government. So I do not see any other issue other than the fact that there are persons behind the scene beating these drums of war so that they can make gains out of it. And I would want to advise the governor to be careful. No matter how
I'm sorry to cut you short, Mr. Sampson, but when you say that the lawmakers' decision to impeach the governor is not politically motivated, I will need you to actually clarify yourself, because the lawmakers and the appointees who resigned, are they not in support of the former governor, Wike? So where is, we can see the connection that there is obviously one factor here, and that is their loyalty to former governor Wike. So when you say it is not, there is no political intention, since when did the lawmakers in Rivers State care so much about governance in the state to put aside some of these political measures and just face governance? Because if normally what we should be hearing in the news is development projects being passed, laws being passed, not this political crisis, which is more of like noise to the hearings of Nigerians. That's not the Rivers State that we have always known, even though we know that political crisis in the state did not just start from now. But for you to say that there is no political motivation between the lawmakers and those who willingly resigned, then I don't know. You'll have to clarify that for me.
It's possible. And please, one of the things, being a politician is not just about having basic qualification as stipulated by law. There are abilities expected of you as a politician, as a leader, as a governor. Why can't the governor win the hearts of those who are working with him? Why can't the governor find a way to have a common ground? I mean, the governor has not told us publicly that the commissioners are not coming to work. He has not said that. He just reshuffled his cabinet, and those he reassigned felt that, look, this is my area of competence. I cannot work in this ministry you have sent me to. So I have to resign. That is not even a problem here. It's within their rights to resign. And the governor of Rivers State is not angry that they resigned. So I don't know where the issues are coming from, other than the fact that people are trying to take advantage of the circumstances, and they are pushing the governor from behind. They want him to assert himself as the governor of Rivers State, whom he is already. There are not two persons who have the red biro. There are not two persons who sign as the governor of Rivers State. There are not two persons controlling the resources of the state.
Okay, sorry to cut you there. If I may ask you, who are these people who you feel are trying to insert themselves into political relevance?
I wouldn't be the one to mention names, but it's a conglomeration of persons who had played themselves out of relevance in the politics of Rivers State and Nigeria by default of character, by default of mismanagement of the political opportunities that they have. And they are now trying to push the governor, knowing that, there's a problem between the father and son. Push the governor to the point of, putting the state at a huge detriment. And I do not appreciate it as a person. So if I were to advise, I'll tell the governor to slow down. If there are things that you do not feel comfortable with, listen, political solutions are not always comfortable. But at the end of the day, it brings benefits of peace to both sides. And that's what we see in those agreements, that they will not impeach the governor, and that the governor would also respect and recognize the assembly. Now, if they are doing their bit as a governor, they should be able to establish a working relationship. Those are one of the things we put in our resume, that I have the capacity to work with several persons. I have the capacity to manage pressure. I have the capacity, to work under pressure. Those are the things we put in our resume. And I believe that is part of the governor's resume. Is a requirement to be the governor of a state, to be able to bring people to your side and lobby and negotiate.
Okay, sorry to cut you again, Samson, but we are seeing a situation where politicians have chosen who they want to be loyal to. So how does that become the challenge of Fubara'S inability to lead those in his cabinet? They've clearly chosen that, okay, I want to side with former Governor Wike. I don't want to be part of your cabinet. If people don't want to work with you, then what is your role as a leader in doing anything to ensure that they actually want to work with you and be a part of your team? So don't you think that this is just beyond Governor Fubara'S inability to bring everybody together? Because for one, you should know that former Governor Wike is the political godfather here. He's the one, that brought him into power. But clearly, Fubara'S seems to want to create his own space and, make his own way to political relevance, so to speak. But when you say that, the governor is not able to, I think Nigerians see clearly way beyond that. I don't know what your reaction to that is.
These things are not as difficult as we think it to be. Let me give an instance. If there are commissioners in the Fubara'S government, of course, of which all of them work for the governor to become governor that he needs to be. And there are disagreements, and there are some persons who believe in the minister, and some agree to the governor. If these are the issues, those who are commissioners are saying, look, we do not like the way you speak about our principal, and your loyalists antagonize us. It's simple. The governor will have to call his people and say, look, I don't want any of these political issues. Nobody should delve into this issue. After all, it was the governor who told us that the problem between himself and the minister is a father and son matter. When somebody says the father and son issue, it means that it's something within our powers to resolve. We can just discuss about it and resolve. That means the issues are personal. And so I don't like the fact that we are dragging governance into this issue. What Mr. President sought to resolve was the issue of governance in Rivers State. Because the assembly members were elected by the people, the governor of Rivers State were elected by the people. And they owe us the obligation to ensure that they fulfill their promises to us, either as lawmakers or as members of the executive in this case. So the governor is the leader of the political party PDP in the state, as he claims to be. He should be able to lead his group in such a way that they do not antagonize the others. Let the public see that, okay, the problem is coming from this side. But each day, I tell you, if you come to Rivers State, the governor has been holding endless Thanksgiving since he came into power. I don't know if that's part of the consolidation and continuity of the manifesto he had, but that's not a problem. But when you hold this kind of Thanksgivings, what do people say? They keep abusing people. They keep saying things that will antagonize people in the midst of Thanksgiving, acclaim Thanksgiving. All of those are going to, infuriate those whom we feel are working with the minister. I am not taking a side here. I am not interested in the personal problems between the minister and his political son. I am speaking as one who is interested in the governance of Rivers State. And for there to be governance, there's got to be some measure of peace. And peace, like we say, is priceless. We should be able to pay anything possible for us to have peace. If your endurance and debasement of ego is what is going to help for there to be peace, I think it's not too much price for one to pay.
All right, let's talk about peace. What do you make of Pa Edwin Clark's lamentations to the IGP on the crisis that's going on? It's also calling on President Tinubu to do something because of this bid of the APC and the lawmakers who defected and who are still in the House of Assembly and are moving very fast to impeach the governor. We'll see how possible that is. Because do Nigerians have reasons to be concerned, just like Pa Edwin has laid it out clearly for all of us to know?
Thank you very much. With the greatest respect to Pa Edwin Clark, I feel that there is no violence in Rivers State at the point, as of now as we speak. Nobody's attacking anybody. People are going about their activities freely. The governor's supporters are going about their activities. The supporters of the assembly members and the minister, they are going about their activities peacefully. Every side hold activities every weekend. And nobody up till today would claim that anybody has invaded their gatherings or not. So where does the police come in? The police will not come into a situation that does not need their attention. Why are we calling in the police? This is a civilian rule in the first place. The police can only come in when there are crimes, when there's an attack on this other side or the other side. And in this case, there is none. So why are we calling in the Inspector General of Police? There is peace in Rivers State as at now. But what we are avoiding is an implosion, a disruption of that peace. And the only thing that will prevent the disruption of peace is when everybody respects themselves. Those who are supporting the governor respect that those who are supporting the minister also have their rights to support the minister. Those who are supporting the minister would respect that those who are supporting the governor also have their right to support the governor. And if there's a mutual respect between these two parties, then people would have to now look at what they say and how they say what they say in public. If we implore caution and are cautious with what we say, I do not think that the peace we're enjoying as of now will be disrupted. If we caution those who bring gossip to us, to want to incite us to begin to take actions that would ignite fire, I think that there would not be need for the police to come into the circumstance. So as of now, there's no need for anybody to call the police attention or to call the attention of the IG, because there's no violence in Rivers State. There's no exchange of attack between both sides of the divide. What we should be saying at this point is that, look, everybody should maintain the decorum. Like you asserted here, which is true, Pa Edwin Clark had taken a side. He's supporting the governor of Rivers State. No problem, that's within his right to do that. But when we begin to speak as though we are neutral when we are not neutral, it gives me some kind of concern. We cannot be calling the IG of police for peace when there is no disruption of peace. There is peace in Rivers State, but what we want is that that peace should not be disrupted, and that's why everybody will have to be careful what they say, including the governor himself. You listen to the governor, you heard how he spoke, how he addressed the members of the assembly. The worst thing you could say is that they are embattled members of the assembly. Not to go very personal, to address them as those young men. Some of them I used to feed them. I used to pay the school fees of their children. I mean, all of those are irrelevant, and I do not expect the governor to say that. We should be dealing on the issues. If you want to speak about the disagreement between you and the institution called the Legislative Assembly of the Rivers State, you should speak about that. But to the point of digressing and denigrating, talking about those who you feed, those whom you pay school fees for, it is irrelevant. And for Edwin Clark to have called the governor to caution, to say, look, you don't say that as an executive governor. There's a courage for a governor. There's a way you speak. You speak about issues. And if you must speak about individuals, you must also convey some kind of respect in speaking about your opinion. So I think that what we need at this is caution to everybody. Let's be careful what we say so we don't stoke the fire.
Okay, Mr. Sampson. Now, my former guest said the crisis will linger till 2027. Is it that we're going to see a match between who is more politically relevant in Rivers State? You have Camp Wike, Camp Fubara. How do you see this playing out? We want solutions. I feel the citizens of Rivers State are pretty tired of this back and forth between Fubara and Wike's camp. What's your thoughts?
I'm not a prophet of doom, and I like to be optimistic rather than pessimistic. I feel that these issues can be resolved if the parties involved want to. I think it can be resolved today. I think it's something that has the potential to, last for as long as the parties involved have refused to toe the path of peace. So I would not assume the place of the prophet of doom to say, look, this thing will last into 2027 and to consume Rivers State. I pray not. And I'd rather be optimistic than pessimistic. But my own contribution to my positivism on this issue is to ask everybody to take it easy. When you're angry, you don't say everything. You don't just talk by the promptings of your feelings. You don't. Sometimes you have to, cave in and shut yourself up. Restrain from reacting to certain things. And I feel that is what everybody should be doing at this time. You don't have to say it the way it is and the way it pinches you. You have to be careful. You have to look at what you say, especially occupying a position as powerful as the office of the governor. If you say something, it becomes a signal to several of your supporters, either to be calm or to be violent. And I feel that everybody needs to stop talking tough and making very firm declarations that can provoke the other side, and then we begin to see ourselves throwing stones at each other. So I believe that the problem can be resolved, but it's only subject to the parties involved giving to the solutions that have been provided. If Mr. President has said, look, everybody should withdraw their cases in court, I want to ask, are their cases still in court? Who is sponsoring those cases? Whose loyalists have gone to court? And there are a lot of cases that are still linked to Rivers State government. Why are those cases not withdrawn? Now, another thing that had been said in that agreement was, look, aside recognizing the members of the assembly and recalling the commissioners, budget should be represented. That has not been done, and I don't want to go into those issues. But we cannot, after you have signed to an 8-point or 9-point agenda, chose the one to agree to and the one not to agree to. Your signature to that document means that you accept everything in it, quick line sinker. That's what it means.
So sorry, we have to cut you off there. But finally, before we go, I wanted to know how this lingering, back and forth in terms of the political atmosphere in Rivers State. I always don't like to use the word crisis, because it's not what it is. It's just, tussle for power, political relevance, so to speak. So how will you access the dividends of governance in Fubara'S administration amidst all of these distractions? Because I recall the Commissioner for Information talking about the fact that there's some projects that are going to be commissioned in the state. Can you talk to us on governance so far in the state?
So far, we would say governance is on in Rivers State, but how well is what we would not be able to tell. This is May, so this month makes it 1 year that governor has been in office, and he has just about 3 years left. So 1 year in office is enough to evaluate the performance of a government, because it is believed that government has lived or existed on a budget, a running budget. And I want to say this: if the governor has been existing and running by a budget, then we should be able to evaluate what he has done based on that budget. So what did the governor put in the budget for 1 year? Has he achieved those things? That's a question he should be answering. As for me, I clearly know that all of this divide and chaos is affecting governance, because at some point, the local government chairman are not agreeing with the governor. At some point, the governor cannot also forward a list of commissioners to the assembly. He has not done that anyways, but it looks like he's restrained from doing that, because he feels that the assembly may not append to it, since he too would not sign the bills that have been sent to him for his consent. So one way or the other, we do not have a full cabinet running. The list of commissioners that ought to be running are not there. And that's owing to this crisis. There's a feud between the chairman of the local government and, of course, the governor of the state. So, it's definitely affecting governance. But another thing you would ask is the governor not having money? Because a lot of this takes money for you to be able to fulfill your mandates to the people. And in a ministry where there's no commissioner, there are permanent secretaries and civil servants, to run the operations of that ministry. So if the crisis is the excuse for abysmal performance, as some people are alleging, then I would say no. Because the governor has access to money. Nobody has denied him access to money to do what he needs to do. And he wouldn't say he's short of manpower, because in every ministry there are full civil service staff, who do their responsibility, monitor projects, monitor agencies, and all of that. So I feel, but some way, somehow, You know, the time put into planning a political battle is so much, and it takes a lot of money. So, summarily, yes, this administration cannot be performing as expected because it is in a avoidable political battle. You understand what I mean? This political battle is avoidable. I mean, you could just...
Well, our time is fast spent, Mr. Samson. Thank you so much for being with us on Politics Now, all the way from Rivers State.
Always a pleasure.
All right, that's our show for tonight. Many thanks for watching. I am Morno Balagugu. See you on Friday right here on Politics Now.